Thank you, Rita. Hello there, welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. Could more travel disruption be on the way after security staff at Leeds Bradford Airport vote to strike in a row over pay?
Our members have never taken strike action before. We've never balloted our members at the airport, so I think that's sort of symbolic of where things have got to.
The airport says it remains committed to working with unions to reach an agreement. Also tonight, a couple who lost everything in the recent fires in Yorkshire are urging caution in the current heatwave. The race to the top, Yorkshire's climbers getting ready for the European Championships.
Breaking up is so...
And a new documentary looks back at the history of Bradford's reggae sound systems.
And after another hot and sunny day, just how long will this weather last? Join me for the full forecast.
Thanks for your company this evening. If you're planning on travelling aboard the next few weeks, then listen up, because passengers at Leeds Bradford Airport could face more disruption after security staff voted to take industrial action. The GMB unions say 93% of members have voted to walk out from the end of August in a dispute over wages. Some staff are only earning minimum wage of £9.50 an hour, but the airport says it's given pay rises of up to 15% and is committed to working with the union to reach an agreement. Abby Giola has more.
When air travel opened back up after the pandemic, passengers faced huge queues. This was back in June, and people are still advised to arrive 3 hours before flying to allow time for check-in and security scans. But now comes the news there could be further disruption, with the staff who do the security checks voting for strike action.
Our members have never taken strike action before. We've never balloted our members at the airport, so I think that's sort of symbolic of where things have got to. My members tell us they have nothing after they've paid everything out.
The dispute centres around pay, the GMB union claiming staff are struggling as inflation rises and wages aren't increasing at the same rate. They say some are on minimum wage of just £9.50 an hour.
And our members are telling us, they get it, that one's taking a scooter to work because he can no longer put petrol in his car. Another one's sold his car. Someone else is borrowing money every month from their daughter, which they find humiliating because they cannot afford to live.
Leeds Bradford Airport said they were disappointed by what they've called a cynical move to industrial action. They said they've done all they can to improve pay by up to 15% for frontline staff. They said it's a considerable step towards improving conditions. They've said they'll continue to work with the GMB to avoid unnecessary strike action. Passengers will be hoping there is a resolution soon to avoid a repeat of scenes like these. The GMB dispute the airport's claim of a 15% pay increase and say a 3-day walkout is planned from the 24th of August, but say they're still open to talks. Abby Giola, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Let's turn to the weather now. As temperatures rise this week, a couple from South Yorkshire who lost everything in the recent wildfires are pleading with people to heed fresh safety warnings. The blaze that destroyed these homes in Kiverton Park were one of several across the region during the heatwave in July. It'll be a year and a half before some families can return to their homes. Corinne Wheatley has this.
The devastating impact of a field fire out of control. These homes in Kiverton Park went up in one of several blazes in South Yorkshire last month and burned on and off for a week.
This grass was, yay high. It just burnt really, really quickly. And when I spoke to the fire brigade on the day, he explained to me that because it's a bit of an uphill thing, there was the right wind behind it, so it just rolls and rolls and rolls and builds almost like a tidal wave. I was stood in the garden over there with a garden hose just trying to do something. But the intensity of the heat, and then as you could hear the fire roaring and rolling in, there's nothing else I could do at that point. I just had to leave.
Paul and Lindsay and their 2 young children are staying with family and friends while they wait to move into a rented house. It'll be at least 18 months before the terrace here is rebuilt and they can finally return home.
It's things like baby blankets and photos from the hospital. It's all my family photos. They've all gone, and I've got almost no connection to my past anymore. It's the memories, a TV, a sofa, all those things can be replaced.
Stuff.
In time, it's stuff, and we're not bothered about stuff.
there was a huge community outpouring that really looked after us, which we can't thank enough, really. When it comes to looking after the kids and things. And I guess we've not really thought much further than that, other than getting them settled somewhere.
The sheer number of wildfires in the heatwave 3 weeks ago created unprecedented demand on the fire service. It took almost an hour for firefighters to reach some incidents. As temperatures rise this week, there are fresh warnings about the risk of fires in tinder-dry conditions.
It is a huge, very serious risk that you cannot control. So you really do need to follow the advice that's given, because, had that happened at night time, it would have been, it could have been the difference between saving our lives and things. It was bad enough that we were in anyway.
Some of the grass in this field has now been cut back, and it's understood a fire break will be dug. Although it comes too late for this family, they hope more can be done to lower the risk in future. Corinne Wheatley, BBC Look North, Kiverton Park.
You're watching Wednesday's Look North, still to come on tonight's programme. We'll hear from the Leeds athlete bringing home Britain's only medal from the Under-20 World Championships in Colombia. The sister of a man who died in a disturbance in a York jewellery shop 2 weeks ago has said his family is still waiting to hear precisely how he died. Sam Diatta was restrained in the Mappin and Webb store on Coney Street and developed medical difficulties. The Independent Office of Police Conduct say they will not be investigating North Yorkshire Police's actions in response to the incident. 4 people have been arrested and released on bail as police and medical investigations continue. Ian Reeve reports.
Just amazing, really loving, kind, generous, giving, quite a quiet person a lot of the time and understated. He wasn't in your face, he wasn't looking for recognition or glory. And I was very blessed to have him as a brother for 39 years.
Tabor doesn't yet know how her brother Sam died in York last month. A disturbance in a jewellery shop in which he was restrained is about the limit of her knowledge. 4 arrests have been made, tests and reports are ongoing. But what she does know is that, contrary to some reports, Sam wasn't a thief.
It's caused us quite a lot of sadness seeing, that people have gossiped and said that Sam was involved in a robbery in the jewellery store. That is complete nonsense. There's no truth in that. North Yorkshire Police have confirmed that this is not a robbery. This is a very sad and tragic circumstance, and people shouldn't gossip.
Sam had relatives across the world, all still waiting to say farewell.
I've got a cousin in California who's coming over to the funeral. I've got a cousin and his wife who are in France, and then 2 uncles who are coming over directly from Senegal, all to pay their tributes and say goodbye to my brother. They're all Senegalese, but they're dispersed over the world.
And when Tabor and her family do get to say goodbye to Sam, this is the man they will remember.
Someone said about Sam, and I think this sums him up, he was always so smiley, he was smiley Sam. That's what one person said, and I thought, you got that absolutely right.
Ian Reeve, BBC Look North.
Now, last week we said farewell to our much-loved colleague and friend Harry Gresham. At his funeral, people were asked to give a donation rather than flowers to a charity close to Harry's heart. He'd been living with myeloma. It's a type of blood cancer for the last 6 years, but it wasn't connected to his death. It's a common condition, and currently there isn't a cure, although there's been a lot of progress regarding treatment. I went to speak to Harry's consultant at St James's Hospital in Leeds, and I asked him to tell me more about the disease.
Myeloma is a blood cancer. It's a relatively rare cancer, although it's the second commonest blood cancer, and it derives from the cells in the bone marrow that make antibodies, which we've all become very familiar with, given the recent experience with the pandemic. But the antibody-producing cells in myeloma are the cancerous cells that cause all the pain and destruction.
Harry was living with myeloma for 6 years. What stage was he at with the disease?
What he had was what's called smouldering myeloma, which is an earlier form of the disease, which we follow closely in the clinic. And then as it starts to progress, we then start to design how we're going to treat it. So that's what we were doing for Harry, and he just got to the point where he needed treatment. So we were looking at our treatment options at that stage.
What are the symptoms of myeloma?
The symptoms are very vague. They can be tiredness, fatigue, bone pain, and I'm sure many people Many of the viewers will experience those kind of symptoms, but it doesn't mean they've got myeloma, they're just very vague. And that makes it difficult to make the diagnosis at times.
Is it curable at all?
Sadly, it's not curable in the vast majority of patients, but it is controllable. And we've seen quite significant leaps and bounds on the treatments that we can give patients with myeloma over the last 10, 15 years, such that people are now surviving between 5 and 10 years, if not more than that, which is not bad with an incurable cancer.
You mentioned that Harry was at the point of needing treatment. He was about to embark on a trial, wasn't he? How important are the trials for myeloma treatments?
Well, one of the reasons why we've improved the survivorship from myeloma over the last 10, 15 years is because of the tremendous amount of trial activity that is going on, not only in the UK, but across the globe. And there's been many new drugs have come into the clinic for treating myeloma. A lot of those are funded by NICE. That then means that we can offer it to all our patients who come through the door here in Leeds.
Harry's family are really keen to raise money for myeloma in his name. How important is the research?
Hugely important. We've got to understand the disease if we want to try and beat it, but equally we also want to learn and develop new treatments. And all that is encompassed with the research activities that we do across the country, particularly here in Leeds. It's hugely important, but it's also very expensive, and we do need to raise money to try and fund the research.
And you're doing your own fundraising for myeloma. Tell us about that.
So what I've agreed to do is to cycle from London to Paris in September. Yeah, it's quite a daunting prospect, to raise money for Myeloma UK that can then be recycled back into basic biology research and clinical trial research.
I know Harry was a keen cyclist, always around York on his bike, so I'm sure he'd approve.
Thank you.
Harry also did lots of daft things for charity, so he'd definitely approve of that bike ride, wouldn't he? OK, let's bring you some news in brief now. A man has appeared in court charged with murder following an assault outside a Wakefield rugby club. Former soldier Jack Kermond, who was 33, died from a serious head injury after an attack outside Charleston Rovers in the early hours of Sunday morning. His family say Jack injected light into everyone who knew him, and he leaves the world a brighter place than the one he came into. As a family, we thank everyone for their well wishes. Lee Robinson, who's 38 and from Castleford, has been remanded in Leeds Crown Court tomorrow. A care home in Rotherham, which looks after people with dementia, has been rated inadequate by the Care Quality Commission. Inspectors visiting Leyden Court Care Home in May and June say they found dirty and stained mattresses, as well as dirty baths and shower chairs. A number of residents had lost considerable weight, but there wasn't support for them at meal times to make sure they were eating. The CQC says the service is now in special measures, which means it will be re-inspected. Leeds and Sheffield City Councils have become the latest cities to submit their bid to host next year's Eurovision Song Contest. This year's winners, Ukraine, can't host the show due to the ongoing war in the country, so the UK has stepped in after Sam Ryder came second. Other locations across the UK have also launched their bids. Sheffield City Council want to hold the contest at the arena and are working with other South Yorkshire councils. A shortlist will be announced on BBC Radio 2 on Friday morning. Oh, fingers crossed, one of our venues, eh? Right, the European Climbing Championships gets underway tomorrow in Munich, and there's plenty of Yorkshire interest. 8 of the 13 members of the GB team live and train either in Leeds or Sheffield. That includes the 2 top boulderers in the country, one of the 3 disciplines that they can compete in. They're Holly Toothill from Cowling near Keighley and Maxine Milne.
I've been climbing my whole life, just climbing trees, lampposts, roofs. I think it was a place I could lose myself. Or maybe not lose myself, but find a new me.
It was just different. No one else did it. And I kind of liked that I could make it my thing. It's one of the most creative sports ever. It's never the same, and it felt like a way you could express yourself without having to write it down or talk to someone about it. You could just go and be you for an hour on a Wednesday after school. It was just, yeah, I had never found another sport like it. For a while you just went to enjoy it, and for me it was all about enjoying it. And then in the last few years, when I had the opportunity to go to some of the World Cups, I kind of got a taste for what it could be like. I have a very strict process. I I've tried to stick to. I just stand and I look at the boulder, taking everything that's there, take a breath. Then when I'm happy with how it all looks, I put my little mat down, I brush the boulder, and then I just go.
I'm driven by perfection and being the best in the world. It's more looking out to the crowd and then looking at the boulders. That gives me like, it's a pretty still feeling, but it's more like pride and excitement. It'd be nice if I could have that effect on a kid where they find their passion through seeing me on TV at the Olympics in 2 years' time. It's like, it feels like this is what I'm meant to be doing, and that's a really good feeling.
They're incredible, aren't they? So agile. Live coverage of the Multisport European Championships in Munich begins tomorrow, and you can watch it on BBC One or 2 and the Red Button or on iPlayer. Summer is here, and with carnival season just around the corner, you may well hear the strains of reggae music in the air. We haven't got any in the studio, sadly. In Bradford, the city's history of reggae sound systems, that's the huge banks of speakers designed to make you want to dance, have been recorded in a new documentary. Kathy Booth has put her dancing shoes on. Hopefully there's music for her to dance to. A club in Bradford to find out more.
The reggae sound system scene, captured here in Huddersfield in 1989. It was underground and edgy back in the 80s, and now it's literally history.
It's a city full of unsung heroes.
Bradford's sound system culture is the subject of a new documentary made in the city. So why is it so important to document this cultural legacy?
When it comes to August every year, people go to Leeds Carnival, Notting Hill Carnival, Birmingham Carnival, and they get a taste of what sound system culture is about, those big bass speakers. And so what we are trying to do is look at reminiscing and, you know, bringing back that feel of what that culture was like.
Howard Brown runs a club in Bradford. His sound system, known as Scorcher, has soundtracked countless parties over the years, and its history could be traced right back to Jamaica in the 1950s.
The history of Scorcher is my dad. He brought the sound back in. He was a pioneer for the black community in Bradford, so for the sound system, yeah, he did it. He played wedding anniversaries, christenings, birthday parties. He was the man that used to go to for the house parties in the 50s and the 60s, you know what I'm saying?
And Howard's dad, Rusty, remembers it well.
Oh yes, we have some really, really nice time with sound system in England, Bradford especially. All around you go, Scorcher. The Four Corner Yorkshire. When we have dance and say house party, birthday party, the English lady them and Englishman them next door, them say, Mr. Brown, when you're having a party, let me know that we get to drink in.
The rare archive footage has been collected by reggae historian Ashish Joshi.
It's a kind of music that you can feel, and that's why people like to hear it loudly, because as well as listening to it, you need to feel the music. If you can't feel the bass, you don't know what reggae is.
Speaking of volume, there was one question I had to ask Howard. Scorcher, she's so loud, isn't she? You must have had some run-ins with the authorities every now and then over the years.
Oh yeah, we do. We've had a bit of run-ins with the police, it's true. It's still coming, it's still happening now. We're still getting the complaints now. I still have to go get soundproofing, and the old town centre can be hearing it more time if we do turn it up.
After decades of filling dance floors, Bradford's sound systems deserve a song and dance all of their own. Kathy Booth, BBC Look North, Bradford.
Paul's bobbing around in the background. Before we go to him, I just need to tell you about this because wildlife experts say the prolonged dry and hot weather is having a damaging impact on plants and animals. These include hedgehogs. Dozens of them have been rescued recently after becoming very dehydrated.
We've had a very busy summer, and most of it is due to the juveniles that are leaving the nest are so disorientated because of the lack of water that they're getting a little bit lost in life. They're out during the day and people fetch them to us.
Oh, bless her. So maybe a little bowl of water out in the garden.
I didn't see any last summer. I saw 2 in my garden last night, but I do put a bowl of water out.
Do you?
Well, they're really desperate. They can't find any liquids, can they? So
it's been really very warm today.
Well, yeah, and you know, the interesting thing is we've peaked at 30 degrees, and yet 3 weeks ago we had 40. I mean, it's difficult to get your head round because it does feel hot today, but it just a reminder of how intense it was when we reached 40 degrees.
The night time wasn't so bad, was it? Last time around, the night time was really
We've
hot.
lost the humidity, so it is a little bit more pleasant at night. You're quite right. Let me show you a few pictures that you've sent in. They're all very similar. That's the River Nid in Knaresborough, looking pretty spectacular. June having a nice time there in Knaresborough. The second picture, which is going to be on our screens, that's Lower Lathe Reservoir. Gaz has sent his drone up, looking depleted like many of the reservoirs are. And the third picture is a fantastic one, looking from Settle. Look at that sky. You've got your cirrus in there. Absolutely beautiful. There's a contrail as well, spoiling things. But never mind. Let's have a look at the addresses. If you want to get your pictures on the TV, send them to me right now. So let's have a look at the headline. Very straightforward stuff. It's going to be hot and it's going to be sunny again tomorrow. We've peaked at 30 degrees this afternoon. We could be up to 32 tomorrow. High pressure remains in charge right up until the end of the weekend, but it does look as though we'll see much more unsettled weather developing next week, with the risk of thunderstorms and eventually cooler air moving into, but certainly not in the short term. There's a satellite picture, not a cloud in the skies. So it's a lovely evening right across Yorkshire and the North Midlands with blue skies and sunshine. Overnight, dry with lengthy clear periods. And there might be a little bit of mistiness in places, and we'll see lowest temperatures around 12 or 13 in the countryside. In the towns and cities, just edging up a little bit, 16 in Sheffield and in Huddersfield. So tomorrow's high water times, another fantastic day along the coast. Scarborough 4:05 and again at 20 to 5. So early mist rapidly clearing, and then it's another day of blue skies, dry, sunny all day long, and temperatures responding. Just a light and variable breeze. We're looking at highs again, perhaps South Yorkshire, Chesterfield 33, 91 in Fahrenheit. Along the coast, just that gentle onshore breeze making things feel a little bit more palatable. Friday, Saturday and Sunday it keeps hot and sunny, but there's that sort of deterioration into more unsettled and ultimately cooler weather by the middle of next week. That's the forecast.
Thank you very much. Well, that's it for me for a few weeks. I'm going to be in my back garden in the paddling pool with my kids for a while, enjoying the summer. So I hope you do too, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. The rest of the team will be here to keep you company. Bye-bye.